Hey guys, today this is our gear, similar to the last shave, but we're changing the blade. We're using the Astra Superior Platinum, the inked version, the older version of that blade, and it's not the laser etched one. Everything else is the same. Unforgiven from Mickey Lee. I just really enjoyed that last time. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed the lather. Um, Slickness, and the performance of the lather, but then it's a great scent anyway, and I knew that coming into it. Declaration Grooming B13 knot in a BotiBrush handle, and I'm going to squeeze him and get him back into my little soak cup here. He has been soaking for about 15 or 20 minutes, so he should be good to go. And then we're going to use that same G1 Fat Boy, and I'm going to keep the setting at 3, so we'll keep that consistent as well. I did end up with the laser etched blade having just a hair bit of irritation at the end of the shave. And so I'm really curious if that happens with this blade too. It felt tremendous during the shave, maybe just a hint of something, and then at the end it was kind of all gathered up, but just in a very light way. I mean, it was so light that I almost could just not worry about it, because it did go away very quickly. But it's just very strange, maybe I'm nitpicking, but it could be a difference between the laser etched version of the blade and the printed version. So let's see. So we're going to load up from this Mickey Lee soap, and I think I loaded for quite a bit last time. I hadn't used the soap in a long time. So let's do 45 seconds this time and see if that's going to be good enough. I think it was a minute, minute 5. Maybe by the time you added up all the different load times together. We are going to be shaving off a day and a half of growth, but I don't think that should impact the comparison, because the end of the face feel should be comparable anyway. All right, I got my face wet, so now let's do the loading. Shake a lot of the water out. 45 seconds. We'll start at the 40 mark, so we'll go to 25 on the next minute. So just kind of woody, smoky scent here with a birch tar in there. Very enjoyable. Handful of other notes as well that are kind of supporting cast members. A bit of sandalwood in there. I can pick up pretty well the amber, which is another note in there, but the rest of them are like patchouli and stuff, are very supportive only, and in the background, at least to my nose. So 45 seconds rolling around right there. That's what it looks like. Mickey Lee is, it's worth saying, a discontinued soap, and so it's going to be difficult for you to grab some if you want, but it does show up every once in a while on the used marketplace. It is a good performing soap, and some of her scents were just terrific. Some of them were pretty standard, like a really good lavender that they had, and some other type of and then they did have some florals and some green type scents. They didn't have too many that are just exactly in my wheelhouse like this Unforgiven, but they had some good ones, that's for sure. And this B13 is a 26 millimeter, and he definitely has a big bloom here. So he takes advantage of this large size lather bowl. in the beginning there, 10 seconds ago, 12 seconds ago, after I added that water, it looked like, have I overdone it? No, just keep working. And see, this definitely not too wet now. And we added maybe 17 milliliters of water last time. Let's do it kind of backwards and add about that now. And so what we're going to end up with is either a similar lather that we had yesterday. It could also be a little bit too wet because maybe this 45 seconds wasn't as much soap gathered up in the brush. Now, because the soap had some residual water from yesterday, then that's why I reduced the load time. And if this turns out, once we get it all mixed and consistent, if this turns out to be thicker than yesterday, then we know that, wow, in those 45 seconds, I was able to gather up more soap than I was in the minute or so of loading yesterday. Again, aided by today's residual water on the soap hook. It definitely doesn't look too wet. Might be just right. This is a denser knot here with the B13, and so it does appreciate lathers that are not super wet. There are other brushes that have better flow through, that have a regular amount of density that will be better for a really wet lather. At least that's been my experience. So yeah, you can see the day and a half of growth, a little non-standard today. Although sometimes near the weekends and when I'm hanging around with my kids and stuff, that messes with your schedule, doesn't it? If you're a night shaver. I'm going to splash a little bit of water on. So I just was reminded today online about a recent Mammoth release called Damocles. With some really interesting notes in it. It's seen kind of right in my wheelhouse. And then a big difference in there compared to many other soaps is a metal, what he's hoping will be perceived as a metal type scent. So that'll be fun to try out. Just like yesterday, this guy is kind of ending up a little thin right here. So I will just go back with, even though I left it a little thicker than I thought, it's still maybe not quite enough. Get a good work in because that does affect the blade feel. I want it to be consistent with the nice amount of time I spent yesterday working the lather in. A thought has hit me about pre-shave products. And this thought is, what are people trying to do to get benefits from a pre-shave product? What need is it addressing? Is it simply slickness, protection during the shave? Because with, pretty much any soap I use, I'm able to get tons of slickness and protection from the razor blade. I talk to you guys all the time about how the razor is just gliding effortlessly across my skin, and I feel safe and all that stuff. I've just got, even from kind of mediocre soaps, let alone ones like the kind of the top tier, and others like Sterling that are just amazing performers. You know, Barrister and Man and Declaration Grooming and Noble Otter, Storybook, Summer Break, Mammoth. I mean, just tons of great soaps out there, and guys are using pre-shaves with them. And are they not getting the slickness they need from those soaps? Because that, man, I sure do. Do they like dry? Do they like shaving with a dry lather, a pasty lather? And so therefore they don't have the slickness that they need because of that dry lather, and it's dry-ish, you know, relatively speaking. Obviously it does have some water in it. Tiny bit of feel of cutting the hairs, but I mean, that's definitely kind of what you get when I go a day and a half. So it's going very well right now with this blade. And this one it's one behind, or it's equal to, before the start of the shave, it had 6 uses. And I stopped the laser etched version at 6 uses, or something like that. So officially, I'll be comparing this blade, this inked blade, with the laser etched one after the next laser shave. However, it's possible, and I bet it's pretty likely, that this is going to do better and not have that same tiny bit of irritation at the end. So, you know, is it because guys like to use dry lather, and so they need to have a pre-shave regarding that? I mean, what other reasons could a person have for, since that was a little wet, I'm going to dab wetness away from my skin before I put the second pass on. What if you're using an aggressive razor? But here's the thing, if my slickness is just totally awesome, then even if I'm using an aggressive razor, it's not going to get any better by doing a pre-shave, I think. I imagine there are some, you know, newbies that are using a pre-shave because they saw somebody use a pre-shave, and they don't make very good lathers, right? And so they're compensating. It's kind of a crutch. They're using the pre-shave to give slickness, where if they made better lathers, they, you know, would already have that kind of slickness available. But of course, you've got veteran shavers who have been around for longer, and so they are better at making lathers, so they're not going to have that same issue, right? So I'm going to ask that question on a forum at some point and see see how many different types of answers I get. Not really, you know, should you use a pre-shave? I mean, that argument has been really well documented in many forums, and probably on some forums multiple times, right? Oh man, just a tremendously comfortable shave, and man, what a great lather. So like with this lather that I have now, there's not really any more slickness to be had. I mean, you could probably make it feel more creamy and like silky or something, but I don't think that's going to change any kind of protection or anything like that. And I'm not talking about, now maybe, what if it's to kind of prep their skin for, okay, obviously like a pre-shave soap. If it's just a cleaner, okay, that's one thing. You know, that's definitely valid to clean your face before the shave. Third pass now, and I'm getting easy, slick movement, barely any hint that I'm cutting hairs at this point. The blade has obviously done a wonderful, efficient job prior to now. Very, very comfortable and smooth here. And we'll see if by the end I have a little very very slight irritation feeling, you know, who knows? Could it be some kind of ingredient in the soap? Yeah, it could, but I was getting out with different soaps when I was using the etched blade. So I wouldn't think it would be the... So is my skin changing somehow, you know? That could be it. At some point in our life, our skin can change. Get a good rinse now. Closeness here is terrific. Very nice. Just the tips. I can just see some of the tips here. You know, I don't see any length on them, and that's what I want to see. I really don't go for BBS, especially on the neck, because it would usually leave me with some irritation. Yeah, I do feel just a hint around. I did do some slight against the grain work right here, but that's pretty much equivalent to what I did before. And maybe since I'm doing that work, and I felt confident in doing that because of the excellent feeling I was getting so far during the shave. The slickness and the smoothness of the razor, even on the second pass, much less the third, even better. And so I went ahead and did that. And so maybe that's what it is. Maybe I need to quit doing that if I want like to have that little tingle of irritation, not even be there at the end. Maybe I need to quit trying to do that. I won't get quite as close sometimes, but maybe that's that zero comfort. I'm sorry, maybe that's that. That would be what I would need to do to get a zero irritation, you know, kind of feel. Let us use the same splash we used recently, the fine. It's an alcohol based. This is Italian citrus. Kind of use the same treatment that we did before. I'm glad for the slow dribble of this one. Not a lot of it dumps out. A little bit of sting. Not bad at all. This is a dupe of ADP, Acqua di Parma Colonia. And I can see why it's a popular scent, because, man, it kind of goes with so many things, and it's unisex. It's not wimpy at all. It's not... there's so many extra things that this scent is not. It's not... it's got the orange in there, but it's not food and gourmand type of orange. It's not super bold and in your face. It's pleasant, but it has some simplistic in its orangeness. But to keep it from being overly simplistic, there are some neat spices that are added in there too to make everything happen. So it's really a beautiful piece. With today's 45-second load, you can see we have pretty much exactly the amount of lather I usually like to have at the end of the shave. This is just a little bit of margin, just in case I mess up. I've got, I might be able to fudge 2 passes out of this, but it's at least one nice pass. And I'm just curious, if we scrape away all that we see kind of on the outside of the brush, how much lather is actually in the brush. I mean, this is a dense brush. Yeah, so that's another pass right there. And that is a very well hydrated, very slick lather. Probably a good one for straight razor shavers as well. They like theirs very wet while still being really slick. So that's terrific. Mickey Lee doing a great job. It's actually a better lather than I remember it being. I knew it was good, but didn't quite remember it being this enjoyable and this nice and slick when it's this hydrated, this creamy and fun when it had this much water in it. So and then of course the scent was terrific. So interesting, yeah. I'll be switching back to the etched version for the next shave, and I will. I may use this same razor to do a good comparison, because I'm really interested in finding out, are they different blades? Because historically, and I've said this several times over the last week, the Inked Astra has been one that I can put in so many razors and enjoy, but my impression of the Etched Astra has been slightly different than that, and a little bit more finicky. But we'll see if it's my imagination or the power of suggestion, or who knows? Who knows? So we'll pit these guys back and forth now that we've got them both to about the same number of uses, and we'll put them in different razors and bounce back and see if I can notice a difference, good or bad, or nothing at all, no difference. So that'll be fun to play around with. Remember to give your dense knots, if you have any, like this declaration. Most declaration knots are classified as very dense. Of course, you get the Maggard super high density knots, and others like it. Umo makes some, and it's a popular knot these days. But if you've got a lot of density here, just make sure you get in there and get the soap out of the middle. Give it a good rinse. Now, as here, we're getting into the winter, we're getting into cold tap water being what's in there. And I found that with the cold tap water, getting in there and getting all that soap out takes a good amount of time to make sure it's all gone. And I can help that by bringing in just a little bit of warm water to the mix so that it's lukewarm as I'm rinsing, as I'm rubbing it around inside a bowl of water, as I'm working it to try to rinse it out. And so that's when in my shave, I will bring in some warm, and it speeds up the process of making sure that the soap is out, because if soap is in the middle of your brush there for long periods of time, then its chemical nature, caustic nature, will cause it to eat away at your bristles, and you'll start experiencing some hair loss and other things. So you don't want that to happen. I'm going to strap this on the towel now. And now this is how he looks when he's dropped on the towel. Layers of laminate type wood coloring here from BotiBrush. And these will be soft for a while before they dry out. They don't get very jelly, but they do thicken up just a little bit with the absorbed water. I have enjoyed this brush more now that I'm consistently soaking it for about 20 minutes per shave before the shave. 10 minutes was not long enough for me. And if you want more tip feel, of course, you could start using it sooner. So that is a time period that's customizable. If you like them really kind of firm and more backbone and stuff, then just give it a quick bit of water and then go at it, right? So you can choose. That's another thing you get to pick. So seven times now. This is the 7th use of the inked one, and it pretty much felt the same as how I remember the etched one. And so maybe it's a similar enough. Maybe they kept the grind the same. I wouldn't be surprised if they altered it a little bit when they redid the machines for etching instead of printing, instead of inking the Astra name on the blade. Of course, I can show it to you, and it's easy to see the inked Astra, right? I have to get the reflection exactly right to show you guys the etched one. And I'll just pat him dry over here on the washcloth and that kind of thing. The Unforgiven gives way. It's not a scent that's going to conflict too much with whatever your aftershave is using next. It is enjoyable during the shave, kind of a nice medium strength. I'd say 5 out of 10. I really do enjoy smelling it during the shave. And then those wonderful birch tar notes and the amber and stuff are supportive notes for so many different other scent profiles that I think many, especially this kind of citrus one that I just put on, this ADP aftershave, just sits right on top of the notes that are in the Unforgiven in a great way. I think it's a terrific companion pairing. And just like with the laser etched version, as I'm doing a little cleanup of gear here, the irritation's gone. It was so light to begin with. So wouldn't that be interesting to see that they're both pretty much the same, and I just never noticed it. Yeah, about 20 milliliters of water used. I'm glad I didn't go any further. That was just right. These tips do get brittle when they dry out several hours later, and so unlike a high mountain white or a silver tip, where the tips aren't really treated, it's not as much fun to play around with then. You have to kind of treat them gently because they are crispy. You don't want to break them or anything like that. But for now, it's nice and soft, and it does give way pretty well. It does have some density in there, some backbone due to that. A bunch of density in the middle when you're working it, but and I wouldn't mind if it were a little bit less dense, but maybe with some more uses that could relax a little bit. I think I'm really liking the B13 batch. I think I really am. So, but yeah, it'll get crispy, and it won't be nearly as much fun to play with as the like the 3 bands and the high mountain whites and stuff. Okay, so technically it wasn't an exact comparison today because the uses were slightly different. They're one off at this point, but right now it looks like these blades are very, very, very similar at this point. So we'll see if that changes over time. All right, guys, that's today's shave, and the B13 continues to be enjoyable. The Fat Boy and this Astra with this Mickey Lee are wonderful. Just a wonderful, slick smoothness of the razor. The movement's terrific, and the closeness is very nice. Good comfort. This is not a healing type of splash, but with comfort and the closeness, the shave that this lather and blade are giving me. I don't really need something all that nourishing. I've got naturally oily skin anyway. So a really good one today. Thank you for joining me. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves, and I hope this one helps you out in your journey somehow. Take care now.